Today on No Things Considered, Marco Rubio dances into our hearts, we worry about John McCain, Ted Cruz can't get no respect, Louise Mensch's career is over, and we talk immigration with Congressman Steve King. And now here's your host, Tim Young.
Welcome to No Things Considered, and if you weren't paying attention yesterday, then you missed out on the end, or what should have been the end, of all the Russian collusion stories. Let's just get right into this. James Comey's hearing. If you weren't in D.C., you probably didn't pay attention to it at all. You got to the little bit of clips from everybody and all the spin that they've been throwing out there. We're going to break it down for you so you can follow along, and then you'll have all of the talking points that you need to go make logical sense to your liberal friends. This is my favorite. We start off by finding out who exactly has been leaking stories to the media. Spoiler alert. It's the old FBI Director James Comey. Susan Collins, take it from here.
Finally, did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
So who are the anonymous leakers? It's James Comey himself leaking a memo, at least his memo, but we can see already that he's willing to leak things in order to contradict the president for political purposes. Figure out why you're fired yet, James? I mean, come on. If you can't trust the FBI director, who can you trust? Ooh. Before we get to all of the other smoking guns that happened yesterday, we have to start on kind of a low point, and that low point was a little bit of confusion from, well, our friend John McCain.
Well, at least in the minds of this member, there's a whole lot of questions remaining about what went on, particularly considering the fact that, as you mentioned, it's a, quote, big deal as to what went on during the campaign. So I'm glad you concluded that part of the investigation, but I think that the American people have a whole lot of questions out there, particularly since you just emphasized the role that Russia played. And obviously, she was a candidate for president at the time, so she was clearly involved in this whole situation where
you okay?
Fake news,
you okay, John?
Senator? Just described it.
This is getting kind of
took place. You're going to have to help me out here.
All right. Well, at least he doesn't think that James Comey's the president. What?
In the case of Mr. Comey, the President Comey.
No, sir.
Excuse me. In the case of President Trump.
Wow. If it didn't get bad there, just watch. Oof.
I want to say something, be clear. We have not announced, and there was no predication to announce, an investigation of whether the Russians may have coordinated with Secretary Clinton's campaign. Secretary Clinton's campaign.
No, but they may not have been involved with their campaign. They were involved with the entire presidential campaign, obviously.
Senator's time's expired.
It kind of feels like to me, as a comic, when you watch a clip like this, they're like, just stretch it, John. And you only have like one joke, and they're like, just kind of make it work. In his defense, he did seem kind of drunk, but in his own defense, he said that he was watching the Arizona Diamondbacks game last night that started, well, the night before, that started at about 9:40 p.m. and went for 4 hours. So I'd be pretty wiped out, too. It's not like I stay up till 3 o'clock every night writing this hot garbage that I show you. But in his mind, I feel like he had this idea, like, I wish I could just get away. And we can show you exactly what that would look like. Fly away, John. Just get away from the hearings. If you want to. You've earned it. Hey, you know, he's around for another 6 years, by the way. 6 more years. I'm not going to be working at 80. I might not even be alive at 80. But anyway, the big winner yesterday was this guy, Marco Rubio. Woo! Did he hand it to James Comey and destroyed every one of the Russian collusion theories in like a 2-minute period. Let's check him out on this clip. Marco Rubio as Ricky Martin clips just never get old to me. They're the same person. Have you ever seen them in the same place at the same time? They wear the same boots. Same $400 boots. From JCPenney? Where did he get them from? I don't even know. Anyway, let's watch him handing it to James Comey.
At the time, did you say anything to the president about that is not an appropriate request, or did you tell the White House counsel that is not an appropriate request? Someone needs to go tell the president that he can't do these things?
I didn't, no.
Okay. Why?
I don't know.
Why? I don't know. No, I didn't feel like it. I guess it wasn't that big of a deal, because it wasn't that big of a deal, because if it was, you would have reported it, and the president would have been in trouble for asking you to stop an investigation, which he did not do. Marco Rubio, that was home run number 1. Let's go check out some more of him just handing it to James Comey. It doesn't get old. It doesn't get old. Ricky Martin and Marco Rubio are the same person. Actually, I think Marco Rubio in Spanish means Ricky Martin. Look it up. That's what Google Translate told me in my dreams. Anyway, here's more clips of Marco Rubio just narrowing it down and knocking it out of the park against James Comey, cutting right to the chase.
The 3 requests were, number 1, be loyal. Number 2, let the Mike Flynn thing go. He's a good guy. He's been treated unfairly. And number 3, can you please tell the American people what these leaders in Congress already know, what you already know, what you've told me 3 times, that I'm not personally under investigation?
Those are the 3 things he asked.
There were only 3 things that the president asked him. Marco Rubio nailed it right there. He didn't ask anything illegal. There's nothing illegal going on. Didn't try to subvert justice or ask for any favors. It was just Donald Trump being Donald Trump, and nothing wrong happened. But watch this really cool point that Marco makes that just blows the roof off of the Russian conspiracy theories.
You ever wonder why, of all the things in this investigation, the only thing that's never been leaked is the fact that the president was not personally under investigation, despite the fact that both Democrats and Republicans and the leadership of Congress knew that and have known that for weeks?
It was the fact that the president wasn't under investigation for Russian collusion because there's absolutely no evidence of it. We've been saying it forever. You guys at home know this because you're smart. And Donald Trump even put it in the letter that he fired James Comey with because it's the only thing that wasn't leaked. Convenient, don't you think? Really, really convenient. Marco Rubio, man. We got more footage of him. Go ahead and throw it to it. Doesn't get old. It really doesn't. They're the same person. I'm sorry, I just want to beat that to death. Everybody here is, they're the same exact. Ricky Martin and Marco Rubio are the same person. Anyway, even more hot takes from yesterday in the James Comey hearing. Man, could you imagine being a liberal watching this thinking the smoking gun was going to come and then just, it didn't. In fact, just bits and pieces of this Russian collusion story just started falling apart when their new hero, James Comey, turned out to not be a hero. Senator Cotton asked him about a specific New York Times story on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. Turns out, well, spoiler, it was false.
On February 14th, the New York Times published a story, the headline of which was, Trump campaign aides had repeated contacts with Russian intelligence. You were asked earlier if that was an inaccurate story, and you said, in the main, would it be fair to characterize that story as almost entirely wrong?
Yes.
That's right, look at that, New York Times fake news. So let's take a look at the Comey testimony yesterday, the Comey hearings. Guys, they opened bars in D.C. yesterday so that people could celebrate when Donald Trump would be publicly indicted for all of the collusion with the Russians during the campaign. Turns out, bit by bit, piece by piece, James Comey blew that narrative up. First of all, it started that he was the leaker. He was one of the leakers. And he at least leaked one government document. That was a government document that he leaked. His own document was a government document. And he did it for political reasons. Well, John McCain was asleep. That's fine. Then, Marco Rubio pointing out that there were only 3 things that Donald Trump asked for. And the only thing that wasn't leaked was the fact that Donald Trump wasn't under investigation for Russian collusion because there's no evidence of it. And finally, as I said before, the New York Times pushed a fake news story about the subject. Can you imagine sitting in a bar, being one of these lefties here in D.C. at a bar, ready to party all morning long, and you end up just drinking your sorrows away because there was no evidence to back up anything that you had hoped would come out. Oof. Didn't stop news outlets yesterday, though. An interesting tweet went out, and I'm going to throw this graphic up, talking about the different headlines that they showed yesterday in the news. If we take a look at the left-leaning organizations, Huffington Post saying, lying Trump White House defamed me. BuzzFeed, lies plain and simple. That was also in the Washington Post this morning. Comey suggests there's some truth to allegations in explosive Trump dossier. No, that never happened. Thanks, Think Progress. And then Mother Jones, Comey blasts Trump administration. Those were lies, plain and simple. What was Donald Trump lying about? Nothing, really. I mean, that's what it comes down to. There was no collusion between Trump and Russia. That's what you were all hoping for yesterday. And oops, so sorry. Sucks to suck. Sucks to suck. Speaking of sucks to suck, I think somebody else had a bad day yesterday. Might be the last time we do this segment ever on the show. Guys, it's time for Louise Mensch. International Private Eye. If there's one person who was damaged by yesterday's Comey testimony, it was Louise Mensch, as every one of her conspiracy theories were blown out of the water by his statements over and over again. This morning she tweeted, take a look at this. In case you haven't noticed, I have zero political thoughts right now. Louise, her feelings were hurt. Her awful website had nothing to report. I mean, her next step is basically just saying James Comey worked for the Russians the entire time. Sorry, I can't even keep a straight face for this one. So we went through earlier today, and we wanted to bid farewell to Louise Mensch and her conspiracy theories. She's going to have to bark up another tree. We have a little tribute video to that right now. Oh, man. Oh, I can't. I'm so sad right now for you guys. You're going to have to go out and make up new crazy stories from unnamed sources. The Marshal of the Supreme Court. The impeachment that you said was happening yesterday. What? I can't even close out the segment properly. Just put the graphic up. It's over. Louise. Oh, my God. You're going to have to find a new dealer so you can come up with some better stories. Anyway. Well, now that Louise is gone, we have to pick on a new friend. Here's a guy you might be familiar with. Look at that sexy face. Curt Wall. He writes for Newsweek and a few other things, and he really hates our friend Carl. You know Carl. He walks around the building. He's got a little show. You've never heard of Carl? Okay, you've never heard of Carl. Anyway, Curt tweeted yesterday debunking some little stupid graphic thing. Doesn't matter what it is, but listen, hey, when you take a screenshot of your computer screen, make sure that you don't have creepy tentacle porn up on it. I'm not kidding. Remember, we need to be real with one another about reality.
Reality is not always able to give you a yes or no answer.
There he is. See, look, there he is talking with our friend Carl. There's Carl. He's a good guy. He's an upstart. Have you heard of Carl? No. You should watch his show. He's an upstart. Anyway, there's Curt. He really hates Carl, Curt. And remember, reality doesn't always give you a yes or no answer, but let's go ahead and say this is reality and this is a yes answer. He definitely was looking at, blow this picture up, he definitely was looking at tentacle pornography, and it is a Bichiku. By the way, just don't look it up. Whatever you do, don't look it up. I've seen a lot of creepy stuff in my life. Skip this one. We might actually have an HR issue for making the interns look it up earlier today, but that's a whole other conversation. Listen, the one thing I've learned from Curt Wall is that we should never make an accusation without letting him defend himself.
I am not allowing you to make an accusation and then
I'm not making an
allow me to
accusation,
answer. That
Curt.
is obscene.
You should watch that show. That guy, I think he's going places. That Carl is going. It's going to be something someday. He's going to fire me. Anyway, let's take a look at Curt defending himself. See, this is what happened. It's totally logical, guys. He was asked by his family if tentacle porn was real, and he was like, yeah, it is. And then they were like, well, show us. And then he was like, oh, of course I will, family. Here's tentacle. That's a completely logical explanation, because when people ask me, if tentacle porn is real, the first thing I'm going to do is pull it up and leave it up on my computer for a long period of time. Now, you would do that, right? No? I think my producers actually tried to prove the existence of tentacle porn for a while, especially to your kids and your wife. That's totally, completely logical. I guess there was nothing to see there, huh? Nothing to see there.
Reality is not always able to give you a yes or no answer.
Exactly. Reality is not always able to give you a yes or no answer. Yes, he was definitely looking at tentacle pornography on his computer, and then he took a picture of it. And I don't think it makes it any better that he showed it to his kids or his wife. Also, somebody made this graphic, and I can't get enough of it. Oh, man. Wow, let's go from that level of class to an actual level of class. We got to sit down with Congressman Steve King to talk about something you guys always ask us about: building a wall, immigration. It's one of the main things that you guys comment about. He is one of the guys at the forefront of this conversation in Congress, and we had the honor of sitting down with him yesterday and talking about it. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Congressman King, thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be with you, Tim.
Listen, London's been attacked now twice in the past month. What does that mean for America? How does that translate for us? And what should we be worried about?
Well, I think if you look at as much as they have done to bring in migration out of those parts of the world from which emanates terrorism, that it can be homegrown, it can be imported, but it does come out of that part of the world. And I'm talking about Middle Eastern, and for them it goes usually Pakistani as much of the UK. And I think they have to look at that. If you don't control your borders, if you don't control who's coming into your country, then you're accepting the demographics that you're importing. And we all know by now, demographics are destiny.
Well, one of the and this is going to get to exactly what I want to talk to you about today, one of the major comments that we get on our shows all the time: build the wall. And it's not even prompted. People just put build the wall in our comments on the show. Where are we with that?
Well, I don't think the project's moving along quickly enough certainly not to satisfy me. And the president had, this is a mandate from the American people. I mean, they chanted build the wall at many, many stops. You could almost say virtually every stop. And yet now I'm hearing discussion about a virtual wall. The American people, when you say wall, you don't get to reinterpret that into virtual anything or high-tech anything. A wall is a wall. And it really isn't even a wall that doesn't include a fence. It's not a fence. It's not virtual anything. It's a structural concrete wall that is hard to jump over and difficult to dig under and impossible to run through. And that's what we need to build. It's the cheapest component of it. We can build a structural concrete wall. Precast panels is what I would say, and I would slip form that foundation. They're looking at the designs now, and that's good. They've put out requests for proposals, but a wall is a wall, and the American people are not going to accept a virtual anything or a high-tech anything. But if you want virtual and high-tech, you add that to the wall, not detract from it. And I think the American people will be very disappointed if we don't get this done. The request that the president has in his budget is $1.6 billion. I'd have rather seen $5 to $6 billion rather than 1.6. Then I would have known that he's committed to building 2,000 miles of structural concrete wall.
The term for undocumented immigrants used to be illegal alien. We're not allowed to say that. Apparently that's now not PC to say anymore. But the word was right there for so long. Do you have any opinion on that? I mean, it literally said illegal in the statement when we would reference people coming across the border illegally. How do we lose that?
Well, one of the things that I've been roundly criticized for is using accurate and descriptive language so that people can shape images in their mind and understand what I'm talking about. But I made the point that whatever language we use that is effective, they will characterize it as offensive. And so we can't let them dictate to us what language we can't use. Illegal alien is a proper legal term. You'll find it in the federal code, and it's a proper term.
So do you think then the term politically correct means politically correct for the left?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and the double standard is just, it's unbelievable how stark that double standard is on politically correct language. And in fact, it's become clear that some people, if they're on the left, they get by with using terms like Bill Maher, for one thing. He gets by with using terms because he's from the left. But if anybody on the right said such a thing, they would be ostracized completely from the public arena. And so I'm constantly facing that particular judgment. And by the way, if you watch too, the politically correct police are always analyzing the psyche of anybody that they disagree with politically, and they just freely put labels on conservatives as if somehow they were the psychoanalyst instantaneously. And I said to them, if you're a minority or if you're a leftist, does that give you the moral authority to pass judgment on somebody you disagree with and hurl those accusations? And of course, they don't have a very good answer for that. They are not multicultural.
You've been confused with, let's see, an ambassador to the Czech Republic, Peter King as well, and then also occasionally the author. How do you deal with that when that happens?
And you didn't even go into the confusion we used to have here with Tom Tancredo. He was my lookalike in Congress. And the confusions that came out of the lookalikes were about the same build and we've had similar facial features, but there was a constant confusion going on. And there's nothing salacious about it, but it's actually true that both Tom Tancredo's wife Jackie and my wife Marilyn had confused us for each other. No. And so that's always been a funny joke. And then there was also a house page named Audrey that would always bring me the memos from the press that would be for Tom, and she'd be bringing mine to Tom Tancredo. So finally one day, when she brought me Tom Tancredo's ticket memo for 10th or 12th time, I put my hands on her shoulders and I said, "Audrey, gaze deeply into my eyes. If they're blue, it's King. If they're brown, it's Tancredo."
Thank you so much, Congressman Peter King. Just kidding.
And you're Tim.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Congressman King. Remember what Steve King looks like, because there are so many different people that he gets confused with all the time. He's at the forefront of immigration and building that border wall, and I know you guys would enjoy hearing from him. Before we leave today, everybody last week, or this week actually, had a pretty good week, except for, well, Ted Cruz, who, have you ever been on stage, by the way, as a performer, and then just had somebody else announce and they just cut you off? Check this out.
So what I want to say to the men and women here is two things. Number one, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for speaking out and working to retake our nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Southern Regional Director of Faith and Freedom Coalition, Virginia Galloway.
You ever had the plug pulled? I've had the plug pulled on me, so I know exactly what that's like, Ted. Sorry, buddy. Hey, come on our show. We definitely won't cut you off by playing some sort of generic music from the 70s and having a boring lady come out. Man, that was awful. Poor guy. Anyway, we hope you had a better week than that. Thank you guys for watching. We're here every night at 7:30 p.m. on the Daily Caller Facebook page. If you want to see some more great content, go to dailycaller.com, dailycallernewsfoundation.org. And of course, just scroll down. There's tons of stuff here on the page. If you liked it, if you liked the show, click the heart, click the thumbs up, click the smiley face. That gay flag is an option today, though, so that's another one that you guys can just... No. Nope. Before you ask. Nope. But you can click the flag, but nope. Have a good weekend. We're here every night at 7:30 p.m. No Things Considered.